They promised a billion-dollar stadium, riverside views, jobs galore, and an NFL team for decades. What St. Louis got? Empty land, legal headaches, and a $790 million settlement. Welcome to the wild tale of the stadium that was built on hope and abandoned in reality. Before getting into this crazy story, let's set the stage. St. Louis really loves sports. The Cards for baseball, the Blues for hockey, these teams are a big part of what makes the city special. When the Rams came to town back in '95, it felt like the final piece that made everything complete. Remember those amazing years they called the greatest show on turf? Kurt Warner throwing the ball, Marshall Faulk running it, Isaac Bruce catching it. It was a lot of fun to watch. Then they won the Super Bowl in 2000, and the Rams forever became a part of St. Louis. That's why losing them later hurt so bad. It wasn't just a team leaving, it felt like losing a special piece of what made St. Louis special. The Edward Jones Dome was built in 1995 just to bring the Rams from LA. Think about that. St. Louis took a team from LA, and then LA took it back 20 years later. What goes around comes around, right? The dome cost around $280 million back then, which would be over $500 million today, and the city was really proud of it. But in the sports world, what's new and shiny today becomes old news tomorrow. A stadium that seemed amazing in 1995 was seen as old and boring by 2015, and that's where our story really gets going. And hey, the dome wasn't even that bad. Sure, it didn't have a retractable roof or fancy club seats like newer stadiums, but it worked just fine. The problem wasn't really about the building, it was about money and power, but we'll get to that part soon. Picture this, it's early 2015 and St. Louis is in full save the team mode. The Rams, who were brought to the city back in '95, are threatening to bolt for Los Angeles. Why? Because their stadium, the Edward Jones Dome, was apparently so last decade. So, in an act of civic optimism, or delusion depending on your viewpoint, your hometown heavyweights Dave Peacock, former Anheuser-Busch prez, and Bob Blitz, local attorney and stadium savior, rolled out a billion-dollar Hail Mary. The pitch, a sleek, open-air, 64,000-seat stadium with a breathtaking view of the Gateway Arch. This wasn't just a football field, this was urban renewal, a catalyst, a symbol of rebirth. Basically, it was going to be the Beyoncé of stadiums. And wow, you should have seen the drawings. Glass everywhere, curves that would make any architect swoon, and the whole thing positioned perfectly to showcase the iconic arch in the background. Every Sunday would look like a postcard. Can you imagine waking up with that view? Magical. And the location, really nice land by the river north of downtown, just past the casino near the Stan Musial Bridge. They even wanted to keep one old building, the Ashley Street Powerhouse. That was just to make it look even cooler. This wasn't some plan drawn up in someone's basement. The design team had some big names like 360 Architecture, the same folks who did other famous football homes like Levi Stadium and Mercedes-Benz Stadium. These people are like the superstars of building sports places. They added walking paths, green areas, shops, restaurants, and just in case football wasn't enough, they made sure soccer could happen there too. Oh, and it would only cost $1.1 billion. That's $1,000 million. But hey, what's $1 billion between friends, right? That's like spending all your money and then asking to borrow your neighbor's savings too. The drawing looks so pretty. Glass walls that shine in the sun, seats that would be comfy, food stands with all your favorites, and bathrooms that wouldn't have long lines, or so they promised. It was going to be the best place to ever watch a game, if it ever got built. Now, here's where things get juicy. The funding plan was as ambitious as the stadium itself. They claimed no new taxes, and technically they weren't lying. But the devil, as always, is in the small print. Public funding would come from extended bond, state development money, tax credits, and $120 million from seat licenses, aka charging fans for the right to buy season tickets. Add that to private contributions, $250 million from the Rams ownership and $200 million from NFL's G4 loan fund, and boom, the numbers almost add up. Except that they didn't. St. Louis asked the league for $300 million. That's $100 million more than the NFL rules allowed. Commissioner Goodell took one look and said, yeah, no. Officially, he called the plan fundamentally inconsistent with league policy. Unofficially, he was likely too busy doing happy dances over Kroenke's Inglewood Supercomplex. And honestly, who can blame the good people of St. Louis for trying? When your team threatens to leave, you throw everything in the wall and see what sticks. The problem was, nothing was sticking. It's like showing up to a car dealership with half the money and a really nice smile. Sometimes being nice just isn't enough. What really hurt was that St. Louis was already paying off the Edward Jones Dome. That's right, they were paying for the old stadium while trying to build a new one. It's like buying a new house while you still owe money on the old one, except the old one isn't even sold yet. Not a great money plan. Some smart people in town were shaking their heads. Where will all this cash come from, they asked. Good question. The city was already tight on money for basic stuff like fixing roads and keeping police departments running. Schools needed updates, parks needed care, and somehow there was supposedly money for a palace to watch football in. The numbers never made sense, even to people who were good at math. One study showed the city would lose money every year if they built the new stadium, every single year. But that study got buried faster than last week's bad news. Nobody with power wanted to hear it. With no green light from the NFL, the stadium was already starting to look like a monument to wishful thinking. But did that stop the dream? Nope. The train was already moving full steam ahead even if the tracks were going nowhere. So where were the politicians? Good question. The stadium plan got shown to everyone without the mayor, the governor, or the county boss in the room. Talk about not working together. Can you believe that? The biggest building project in years, and somehow the main city leaders weren't even asked to come to the meeting. That's like planning a birthday party without telling the birthday person. Really strange, right? And what about the regular people who would end up paying for it? They were kept in the dark, no chance to vote, no asking what they thought, just a small group making decisions and some news reports. When people in St. Louis tried to get their right to vote on spending all this money because of a city rule that they could, both the stadium planners and the city took the case to court against themselves. For real. The first judge threw out the city rule, then the Missouri top court said that was wrong, and everyone got stuck in a big mess about being open and honest with the public. The public meetings were so silly, people would stand up and ask really good questions like, where's all this money coming from? Should we fix our schools before building a fancy stadium? But nobody would answer those questions. It was like the words just disappeared into thin air. Poof. No answers at all. By this point, the whole thing seemed less like a smart plan and more like a school project where nobody talks to each other. And we all know how those end up. Messy, confusing, and making everyone upset. In this case, the whole city of St. Louis ended up feeling bad. The worst part, everyone knew the Rams might leave anyway. All this work, all this money, all this fighting, and the team might just pack up and go no matter what. Talk about betting on the wrong horse. Back in LA, Rams owner Stan Kroenke was cooking up something massive, a privately financed $2+ billion mega stadium in Inglewood, complete with shopping, restaurants, offices, and enough space to park every broken dream in Missouri. Kroenke had already scouted the land, hired architects, and probably kicked out throw pillows for the luxury suites before anyone in St. Louis saw the writing on the wall. While St. Louis was still poring over blueprints, he was holding blue ribbon ceremonies. And let's talk about the Inglewood project for a second. It wasn't just a stadium, it was practically its own city. A whole entertainment district with shops, restaurants, hotels, even a lake. A lake! Because nothing says football like ducks swimming around, right? The contrast couldn't have been more clear. St. Louis was desperately trying to find money for one stadium, while Kroenke was casually writing checks for an entire small city in California. Talk about playing in different leagues. Funny thing is, Kroenke kept saying things like, I want to make it work in St. Louis, while his people were already measuring the land in California. That's like telling your girlfriend you want to work things out while you're on a dating app setting up new dates. Not very honest. And the NFL? They were probably in on it the whole time. LA's the second biggest media market in America. St. Louis is, well, not. And in the end, TV money talks way louder than fan loyalty. Way louder. The NFL approved the move in January 2016, and just like that, St. Louis went from NFL city to football ghost town. One day you're planning football parties, the next you're wondering what to do with all your blue and gold shirts. Heartbreaking doesn't even begin to cover it. The fans were crushed. Some Rams fans burned their stuff in backyard fires. Others packed it away, hoping someday maybe the pain would fade. Kids who grew up loving the Rams suddenly had no local team to cheer for. Sunday afternoons that used to be full of excitement were now just regular old Sundays. That empty feeling didn't just hit the fans. Local businesses near the Dome lost customers. Sports bars saw fewer people coming in to watch games. The hotels had fewer visitors on the weekends. It was like an economic earthquake hit downtown. You might think that this is where the story ends. The Rams leave, the stadium plan dies, everyone moves on. Oh no, this is where the real drama begins. Because in 2017, St. Louis sued the NFL, the Rams, and all 31 other teams. Why? Fraud, breach of contract, and breaking their own moving rules. Now we're talking. Nothing says we're not going quietly like suing everyone with an NFL logo. The case was strong. St. Louis argued that the league's moving policy was legally binding and they followed it. They spent millions, made plans in good faith, and were lied to the whole time. They pointed to things Kroenke said about staying in Missouri, like emails, secret deals, even a visit he made to Englewood's site long before the move got announced. It was like he was trying to fix a relationship with your partner is already packing their bags to move in with somebody else. And the proof? Oh my goodness! The proof was so interesting. Emails showing NFL's big shots knew about the move years before. Kroenke promising he wanted to stay in St. Louis while secretly shopping for houses in LA. The whole thing read like a TV drama. The rich and the sneaky. Kroenke's defense? Modern stadium clause. The Edward Jones Dome wasn't new and shiny enough anymore, so he had the right to leave. It was like saying, it's not you, it's your house. Ouch, talk about a mean breakup excuse. One of the most eye-opening things the lawsuit showed was how the NFL really works. All those nice words about caring for the fans and being a part of the community. It turns out that was just talk. When big money's on the table, loyalty goes out the window. The team owners might wear the city's colors on their ties, but they're really only loyal to the color of money. The leaked emails showed NFL officials talking about St. Louis in ways that weren't very nice. One even called the Riverfront Stadium plan a late-night infomercial. Another wondered if anyone would even notice if the Rams left since attendance was down. Talk about salt in the wound. St. Louis had good lawyers, though. They found the promises the NFL made about how teams should act when they think about moving. These weren't just suggestions. These were actual rules the league had agreed to follow after the mess when the Browns left for Baltimore. St. Louis had followed every step the NFL asked for, but the NFL didn't keep their end of the deal. As the case got stronger, NFL owners started to worry. Trials means all your dirty laundry gets aired in public. For billionaires who want to keep their business private, that's pretty scary stuff. While the lawsuit was going on, St. Louis taxpayers kept losing money. Over $17 million was spent trying to keep the team, and even after they left, the St. Louis Regional Sports Authority, RSA, kept spending. On what? Lawyers, help from outside experts, building design companies. Some bills even came in after the Rams were long gone. Can you believe that? The team's gone, the stadium plan is dead, and they're still writing checks. It's like buying a birthday cake after the party got canceled. So sad and such a waste. And being open with the public not happening, RSA wouldn't answer questions and wouldn't share records and acted like telling the public what they were doing with the tax money wasn't just a nice suggestion, not something they actually had to do. One company called HOK sent a bill for $241,000 many months after everyone knew the stadium would never be built. That's not a mistake. That's public money vanishing when a magician makes something disappear. Poof. Almost $250,000 gone just like that. At the same time, people connected to the companies working on the stadium had given lots of money to the governor and mayor's campaigns. That seems sketchy. Nothing strange going on here. Just the usual way money and power work together behind closed doors on big projects. The people of St. Louis were super mad, and they should be. Their team was gone, their tax money was gone, and somehow the bill kept showing up. Talk about making a bad situation worse. And get this, some of the same people who messed up the stadium plan were now in charge of figuring out what to do with the empty land. That's like asking the person who crashed your car to pick out a new one. Not the best idea, right? So finally in 2021, just before the NFL was set to go to trial, during Super Bowl week, the league folded. They settled $790 million. No trial, no saying they did anything wrong, but the message was clear. St. Louis, they fought back, and they won. Sort of. And what timing, right before the Super Bowl. The NFL didn't want their big bosses being asked hard questions while trying to celebrate the biggest game of the year. Can you imagine Goodell, the NFL commish, having to answer tough questions during Super Bowl week? That would have been more fun to watch than a halftime show. The city, county, and state had to split up the money. Arguments broke out over how to spend it. Should it go to downtown projects, schools, roads? Everyone had ideas. How about the best way to use this surprise money? Meanwhile, fans were still left without a team, a stadium, and years of feeling hurt and betrayed. At least now, though, they had some cash to make things a bit better. Although, when your heart gets broken by a billionaire, money doesn't always fix the plan. It's like getting a gift card after someone steals your favorite toy. It's nice, but you'd really rather have your toy back. And $790 million might sound like a lot of money, because it is, but if spread across an entire area with a bunch of people, it's more about making a point than changing everything. Still, it was a win when wins were hard to come by, and that counts for something. The lawyers who helped St. Louis win, they got about $20 million. That's a lot, but they did spend years fighting the NFL in court, which is like fighting a giant with unlimited money and power. The best part of the settlement, it came with no strings attached. The The NFL couldn't say you can only spend this on trying to get another football team or you have to name a street after Goodell. Nope, St. Louis was free to use the cash however they wanted. Some fans wanted to see the NFL squirm in court, though. A trial would have shown everyone just how sketchy the NFL really was behind closed doors. The secret meetings, the backroom deals, the way they decide which cities win and which ones lose. All of it would have been shown to us in the real world. The NFL paid almost $1 billion to keep that from happening. And the poor Los Angeles fans, even after getting their team back, the Rams didn't exactly feel like they belonged there. The first few years saw lots of empty seats at games, with visiting teams fans sometimes outnumbering Rams fans. Turns out you can't just move a team and expect people to instantly fall in love with them. Building a fan base takes time, just like building a stadium. Funny enough, losing the Rams may have saved St. Louis from a money nightmare. The city really couldn't afford $1 billion stadium. The number of people living there was getting smaller, not bigger, and the Edward Jones Dome was already costing more than it was making. The Rams weren't even bringing enough tax money to pay for the yearly cost, so building a new fancier place, that'd be like putting a super fast engine in a car that doesn't even work. And let's be honest, most cities that build these huge stadiums end up wishing they did. The jobs and money they promise almost never happen, and the people end up paying the bills for years and years. So maybe, just maybe, getting dumped by the Rams was actually a good thing that saved the city from a $1 billion mistake. Looking back, the stadium that never got built might have actually been the best thing that ever happened. Today, St. Louis has got a good soccer team, the St. Louis City SC, which started playing in 2023. But they play in a different place, built somewhere else, paid for in a much smaller and more honest way. And guess what? Soccer fans are having a lot of fun. The feeling at those games is happy and exciting, showing that sometimes thinking smaller works better than going super big. Who'd have thunk it? What did we learn? Don't let super rich team owners write your city's future on the back of a napkin. And maybe, just maybe, the next time a sports team comes around to making big promises about money and jobs, get it all in writing and make sure lots of people check it out first. The empty land where the stadium was supposed to go, it's still empty today. But sometimes an empty space is better than a money pit. Now St. Louis can dream up something big, something that works for the whole city, not just for one billionaire's bank account. And that $790 million, it's not going to fix everything, but it is helping with schools, roads, and other things that regular people actually need. Not as flashy as a football stadium, but a whole heck of a lot more useful. So, next time a city dreams big, remember St. Louis, $1 billion stadium, a broken promise, and one giant legal middle finger to the NFL. We're committed to releasing 2 videos a week. Like, share, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for more visionary builds.